Welcome to Coach's Corner. This is episode 43. I am your host, Justin Scollard.
And I'm Ethan Wolf.
And today, guys, we are going to share with you a recent discovery. It turns out that Ethan and I have discovered the fountain of youth.
Oof.
It's true.
I've been sipping.
Yeah, as you can tell. Yeah. So we're going to break down how one can not only extend their life, make their life longer, but improve the quality of life. Because one thing if you're just like hopped up on meds and propped up,
Yes.
but you might make it to 80, but you're, barely hanging on by a thread, versus like living a nice, full, active, strong life through middle age and in advanced years.
I would almost say that the latter, right? That the quality of life for the years you have matters more than,
Yeah.
because if you live from 80 to 100, but those are decrepit,
The last 20 years, you're like getting your butt wiped by like some,
that's
living nurse. Like,
But if you could take it from 60 to 87 as robust and with full of quality, that to me is important.
Totally. Yeah. And then, look good and feel good along the way.
Yeah.
So win-win, fountain of youth, right?
I know it's all about really looking good. If you look good, life's good.
There's truth to that. I tell people all the time, they're like, well, I don't want to sound vain. I'm like, no, be vain.
It
because
is.
You know what? It just so happens that being a little vain also has really positive things associated with it. You're going to eat better. You're going to drink more water. You're going to get better sleep because you want to look good.
Yeah, it just shows you're a bad person, but it's okay.
But just on the inside. On the outside.
The outside.
You look great.
Your heart is doing awesome.
Your heart's, yeah.
Your physical heart.
Yeah. Physical heart.
Oh. No, there's a saying, which I understand isn't necessarily absolute, but it was always a favorite saying, is that appearance is a consequence of fitness.
Yep.
And I think what we're talking about is that to chase an appearance isn't a bad thing, but that to some degree, how you appear is going to be based on just your overall level of health and fitness. And so it's one of those things that I think taking that statement and attaching it to the idea that it's okay to want to look a certain way, within reason.
We live in a physical world. What motivates someone to take action on anything? Mm-hmm. You catch a glimpse in yourself in the mirror and your hair's all natty and your beard's overgrown, your gut's hanging over your belt, you're wearing sweatpants that have coffee stains on, and you're just like, oh no, I can't.
Not going to work.
It's appearance. It's a desire to look better, but because the looking better is just like you said, a consequence of your efforts.
Yep.
But the efforts got to come first, and the appearance is a lagging indicator for better or for worse.
For sure.
So when you have that oh shit moment in the mirror, like I just described, it's because of all the fucking things that were going on up until that moment.
The past year,
past
3
10
years.
years of your life, where you've just been having DoorDash, but now you're the consequences of those actions have led to you wanting to make a change, and the opposite's true as well. We make good changes and then, look better. So the desire to look better is essentially just is understanding that along with that comes all of the work required, all the leading indicators that result in a lagging indicator of you looking better.
Yeah, it's good fuel for the fire. It's like your heart doesn't know the difference of why you do it. You're going to get the benefits. And if you want to look better, you also probably will have a better chance of being active with your kids into later age.
Yeah.
So
I think that everyone understands that conceptually of just okay, yeah, you're right. We'll work out and we'll eat better and then I'll be healthier. Supreme. But I think what's really interesting, just bask and just painting the ego.
Exactly.
You would. But there's some really interesting studies that it's not just you're going to feel better or you're going to look better and that's the only reason why you do it. There are some really objective truths and realities on a mass scale for people who do improve their lifestyle. It's not just you look better and you're stronger. It's no, you're gonna for example, one that I heard was that for every 10 grams of dietary fiber that you increase in your diet, you extend the quality of your good years by 10%. So every time you consistently add 10 grams, now it's not just I ate 10 more grams of fiber today and then tomorrow it's back to zero, but assuming you go from 10 grams of fiber to 30 grams of fiber, you've just increase the probability of reducing mortality rates, improving the quality of your life by 20% by increasing fiber from 10 to 30. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that fiber kind of makes sense in a way because you got your gut biome. I think when we talked about
colon cancer is a huge
I was going to say the
thing.
colon cancer, and that they've shown that fiber is the thing that activates the regenerative nature of the epithelial or the surface cells of your gut lining. Huge.
I mean, my mom just got diagnosed with diverticulitis. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, I know all about it.
So the thinning of your lower intestinal wall that creates like these little like offshoots and
Little
pooches,
bubbles.
and it just causes like these crazy shooting pains.
Yeah, because they often get clogged with fecal matter, becomes very
Yeah,
hard
infected,
and calcified.
yep.
It can become infected.
And
they'll
so,
bleed.
right.
A lot of internal bleeding that can come from them.
Yeah, and like they basically gave her two options. Like you have to clean up your diet, you have to start exercising. And you have to take
Surprise.
Fountain of youth.
Yeah,
Fountain fucking youth.
Yeah.
Right? You got to clean up your diet. You got to start exercising. You got to cut out all alcohol and cigarettes, and take this medication. And if you don't, then most likely within a year or 2 or 3, we're going to have to remove a significant portion of your intestinal tract.
Yeah, you just have to take it.
Yeah, take it out.
And it's a rough place because an ex of mine, actually, her father had it and had it bad enough that there comes a place where now you're also limited to what kind of food you can eat that might be fibrous. So that even though the prescription might be better food choices that include more fiber,
right.
now you also can't eat seeds though. So even though seeds are super high in fiber, and a good way to kind of maybe include that, it's like now because of the nature of the seed, if a seed gets into the diverticuli, the little pocket or offshoot, the chances of it rupturing or becoming physically infected. So now it's like you've almost pigeonholed yourself.
All the things that could have maybe prevented it,
now
you actually can't do that.
Yeah, no chia seeds for you, even though they're one of the best fiber choices for many reasons. Yeah, it's really interesting. So
there's like things like that this is just the lesson that I think I've learned so many times in my life of just like everything is fine until it's not. Nothing hurts until it does. Right? And then it's just like one day, and I see this, we're getting older. We've known people now for 20 years who were 40 when we met them, and now they're 60, or now they're 70, or now they're 80, and 20 years ago, they're all fine, and now you're seeing this stuff, and this is the lesson that if I could just put in everybody's brain, it's like, don't fucking wait until it becomes urgent. Don't wait until all these important things that you should do. Oh, I know I should exercise. I know I should drink more water. I know I should have more fiber in my diet. All these shoulds that are just simply in the important quadrant still because they're not urgent yet. Like, don't be a fucking idiot and wait and not do them and wait until they're in the urgent quadrant. And now you're getting rushed to the emergency room because you have stabbing pains in your stomach, or you get a really scary diagnosis that could have been so fucking prevented had you just heeded the omen 10, 20 years ago.
Right. Done some moderation. Yeah. And it's interesting because I think it's like what we talked about with our last episode of kind of having to take that responsibility for certain aspects of your life that you don't know. It's just easy to let go. And it's just like, so in case it's not clear, it's the message that we have been saying on this show for quite a while, which is healthy levels of body fat, increased lean muscle mass, moderate to low level daily physical activity, and fundamentally quality sleep and hydration, which are all fairly accessible, all fairly free, but take some degree of personal responsibility towards these things on a consistent daily basis for a long period of time.
Yeah.
And I think it's like we were kind of talking about the setting for the episode. Like, it can't be a fountain of youth if you stop it. With the modalities we're talking about. Like,
you can't just eat good for one day and then just eat garbage.
Yeah, even if you were from
week.
20 to 30, you were just on point, but then 30 on, you just let it all go. Like, it might have helped, but fundamentally, you're not going to increase those years, and you're not going to increase the quality of the years. And, and again, as to what Justin was saying, is like, there's hard science that shows, for example, like 15 minutes of physical activity a day. One study showed 3-year increased life expectancy.
15 minutes.
15 minutes, and then the same thing. There was another study that basically showed anywhere from a half a year to 9 years. 9 years of an increased lifespan from just doing something like walking every
But
day.
Ethan, my uncle ate bacon and smoked a pack of cigarettes every day and lived to be 90.
Totally. And, here's the thing. We don't have certain control of certain things. And I do believe, genetic variance is huge, right? Like, unquestionably, like, it's like lung cancer. Like, most lung cancer is based on a genetic inheritance. And obviously, if you smoke with that and genetic inheritance, you're going to be much worse off. But if you don't have it, there's a chance you could smoke until you're 100 and be fine.
And also, like, that's just fucking anecdotal
And
evidence.
that's all, exactly.
Like,
it's just anecdotal.
Like, yes, we all have a grandma or an uncle that,
Right.
like, defied all probability. But the fact is that we're not, like, these are meta studies over decades with thousands
100%.
of people, or collecting hundreds of studies and aggregating this information. It's like, yes, is it 100% risk factor that you're going to die of lung cancer if you smoke? No,
100%.
It's not 100%.
No.
It just goes from like a 10% chance to like a 60% chance.
Yeah.
So there's still going to be plenty of people in that margin who got
Almost half that
fucking
could slip
lucky.
through, yeah.
But like, I don't want to go from like it being basically null and void to like, oh shoot, it's like a 60% chance that I might die of this if I continue this behavior. Like, that's not a risk that I want to take.
Right.
And that's the thing, right? So yes, everyone has their uncle that, whatever, landed on his head jumping out of a helicopter from 10,000
Yeah,
feet.
I mean, it's really the truth.
But
It's
most
crazy.
people would die.
100%. Most people would die. Yeah, and I think there's, it goes like we've done episodes on lean muscle mass, which to me is going to be equated to weight training or some type of resistance training, whether it's just some calisthenics or whatever it is. But basically, again, especially in the elderly, way decreased mortality rate, especially from injury and broken bones and things of that nature. Also from deep illnesses. So if you did happen to get a cancer or happen to have some type of pneumonia or something, that increase in lean muscle masses means you're going to survive longer.
Yeah.
But one of the things that is interesting also about increased lean muscle mass is that even those with higher adipose fat, aka even if you're a little on the overweight side, the more lean muscle mass you have, the less you are likely to succumb to metabolic disease and all types of things. And so, we're kind of naming the 5 pillars of like, watch what you eat so you don't get overweight and fat. Do some resistance training so you have lean mass. Just keep your body moving consistently. You don't gotta be sprinting, but just ride a bike, walk your dogs, just do something.
Pick a routine that makes sense for your
makes
life.
sense for you.
Because I know a lot of people overthink it, and they're like,
Yeah.
okay, but I heard like walking is really good, so I'm gonna walk 10,000 steps, and I heard like then cardio for my VO2 max, and I gotta do strength training, and then I think what happens is like people just keep stacking on more and more and more of what they hear is the right thing until it just reaches this critical mass, and then they just can't support anymore and they quit and they go back to nothing. I think the most important thing is to just find what makes sense to you.
Yeah.
What can you commit to? Is that just like 1 or 2 full body weight training sessions a week, but you can always go out for a 20 or 30 minute walk with your dog every day? You know what?
That's gonna do
Great.
wonders. Yeah, that's
great.
gonna be huge.
Yeah, but like it doesn't need to be all or nothing, where if I can't do all the things that I hear is important, then I'm a failure. It's just, well, what can you do? And just hunker down on that, right?
Yes.
Just do what we can.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I was on this podcast with what's that bald guy who's the doctor,
Israel?
Yes, super smart guy. But he was talking about just like what it might take to reach a certain muscle mass and lean strength level. So yeah, you might have to work out 2, 3, 4 times a week and kind of in order to progress to a certain point. But that generally maintaining a degree of strength and lean mass style fitness that we're talking about only takes 1 to 2 hours a week.
Yeah.
So acquiring something new definitely will take some extra effort, but you can maintain at least, if not even potentially, if you do it right, get gains over time if you're consistent with. He was literally saying 1 hour workout a day can maintain your lean mass if you do it right. A week.
Yeah.
Yeah. It might take 3 times to really progress to something substantial and new.
Yeah.
But 1 or 2 hours a week can be something that can maintain.
I mean, they're
or
saying
even
like
potentially
as low
increase.
as like 1 or 2 sets per muscle group per week is all you really need to like kind of maintain a strength level.
And so it's it's one of those things I think that people do overestimate and take on too much. And I think it's like anything else with behavior change and modification is that the consistency matters, and it's exactly what you're talking about of it being those incremental steps. If taking on 10,000 steps is just too much and you can't figure out how to make it work in your day, but you can commit to 5,000, then over a couple months, there's a good chance you could probably find out how to make up 6,000.
Or maybe you find that just, during the week, it's just not realistic to do 10,000 every day, but you can definitely do 5. But on the weekends, you have more time and you can get like 15,000.
Yeah.
And so maybe now your average throughout the week is more like 7 or 8. And now you're kind of like in the upper threshold of like, what's considered to be optimal. So there's so many different paths to arrive at the same destination.
Yeah.
And part of this journey of constructing your life and designing what this fitness life is going to look like for you is being open to kind of moving into your own style and finding your own thing. Like, I'm not going to go to boot camp classes. I'm just not. Like, you could not pay me. I would pay to not go.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel that.
But get me with some like good old fashioned strength training with some bodybuilding in there. Like, I'm in. And could one make the argument that, but dude, you're missing out on like all this like heart and brain health benefit from the cardiovascular? And I would agree with you.
Right.
And I'm still not going to do it. But what I can do is do a classic strength training workout 4 times a week religiously. And so the way I see it is like, listen, there's marginal benefit to intensity and to, just like frequency. But the marginal benefit that one gets from increasing intensity also comes with a price to pay. And so as the intensity increases, the adherence tends to lower.
Right.
And so where I think a lot of people mess up is they get so caught up in like, was this enough? But what they're not factoring into that equation is, well, if it is quote unquote enough as far as intensity, how much is that inhibiting my ability to be consistent? Because none of this matters if we quit. None of this matters if we're inconsistent. And so my argument for moderate intensity is that it's much more easy to adhere and be compliant and be consistent with moderate intensity.
Yep.
And a person is going to be, over the course of a decade, let's say, and someone can show up 3 times a week religiously, and it's just by all standards a very moderate workout, but they show up consistently, they're going to be in way better shape after a decade than the person who keeps going after these intense 6-week challenges or these really intense boot camps, and they end up burning out. They miss a month because they're just exhausted. It's like this, the volatility and the swings and the fits and starts and the inconsistency. Man, use it or lose it. If you take a month off, you just lost it. You just
100%.
lost the last 6 months of progress by taking a month off. And so that's my argument.
That's a pretty. But
You
I also
lost
think,
to like at least I would say there's definitely at least like a 3-to-1 ratio. Like if you trained for 3 months and then took a month off,
it depends on, I think it's how long you do it. I think
who the person is. Yes, there's
100%.
yeah.
But I also would agree with you though in the sense because there's a chance of injury,
Right.
especially as you get older with the increase in intensity. Right, when you start going for it,
Right.
and you get that look in your eye, especially as you get older, the odd of an injury, which will definitely take you out and remove that time and remove the consistency.
Totally.
Is going in there. And it's one thing to maybe be on your last set of bicep curls and you're like, you know what, I'm really going to go for it. Fairly safe, fairly straightforward movement. You're already all warmed up and you're just like, you know what, like let's just really push this last set, and you just go to failure and
That's fine.
you're gritting your teeth, but it's not necessarily the same as like a crazy boot camp with maybe a very minimal warm up and broad spectrum. I mean, even the example today, I was talking to Justin right before this about how I kind of tweaked my lower back, demonstrating some like handstands and cartwheel movements to these clients. Now, of course, I was cold. I was teaching the session.
What
They're
could go
all
wrong
warmed
there?
up, and I haven't done those movements in a while, and I was just kind of being sloppy. I was kind of just like demoing some stuff. I wasn't necessarily in the mindset of like I'm exercising, which I tend to like try to really be form centric. I was just kind of like doing a quick demo and just cold, and it's fine. I'm not like crippled by it or anything, but it's just one of those things where takes that one little moment. But now I will deal with this for about a week, probably 4 or 5 days. And it just takes that one little moment of offset. And I think what's interesting is that those movements to me have such opportunity for intensities that aren't necessarily mitigated and controlled. I mean, I haven't done a cartwheel in a very long time. And I think if I trained them consistently, really warmed up, got myself prepared, included them in my workouts, and treated them with the proper like progressive approach, but it's
Respect.
like 100%. But now I did it, and so it's kind of a movement that's really easy to have one little piece of it be too much, and here we are, especially as we get older. So it's just one of those things that I think no matter how we look at it, that especially with our movement practice like that, just as long as we can keep doing it, because now like I'm not going to be squatting or deadlifting or doing any type of
for at least a week.
Probably a week.
So that's, that sets you back. So then it's 2 weeks since your last leg workout, and that sucks.
Yeah, exactly. Like
legs are already hard enough to get excited about anyways, and now you gotta
100%.
know that after it's been 2 weeks, I'm gonna be sore
And
as
it's gonna
shit.
work in there. So if I don't stretch and do some body work, and all that kind of stuff, and so it's one of those things that I think this is just a good example too of how we approach our movements, and all that is what's going to help us keep going. Because on the flip side of it, and that no matter what, you engaging in an exercise is going to prevent things like this from happening, right? And I'll admit, like, I just didn't do it the right way, or I haven't done those movements in a long time. And I think if I was just even warm and treating it like exercise, it would have been a little different. But it was just kind of like the laissez-faire, like, let me just demo this real quick. But it's also like we were saying, that the quality of life that you have during your years. So we're kind of talking about extending life. But I think that point that Justin brought up is so important, because the more you move your body, the more you're going to be able to get up and down off the floor without pain, right? I mean, that right there is a test, I think, for individuals like over 50 or 60, is like, can you sit down without your hands in a cross-legged position? So you're just standing and you just drop to your ass to the floor on a cross leg, like classic, like sit on the floor cross-legged, and then stand back up. And the degree of your ability to do that will determine how long you will live. You know what I mean?
I believe it.
Yeah, and you look at people, even if they're not old. I mean, I see people in their 50s that are like, getting onto the floor is hard.
Yeah.
And I think that's just like a really easy descriptor of like, well, if you were to like fall and hurt your hip, or, but think about if you exercise all the time, your joints, your knees, your hips are used to getting up and down. You're used to lunging. You're used to getting on up and off the floor for push-ups. I've heard of practices where people keep their bed off of a bed frame so that in order to sleep every night, they have to get onto the floor. And that simple practice, like especially in like other like third world countries and things, of like how elderly have crazy hip mobility, is just simply because they sleep on the floor, and every day they have to get down and off the floor. Whereas I think in Western culture, as an example, if you're not doing anything on the floor, you could go 20 years without getting on the floor.
There are literally things you can buy. If you ever watch like those those infomercials that are clearly directed towards like people over 50 or 60, there's like contraptions you can buy now to put your own socks on, because the people are just too fat. They can't
get down
so it's
there.
like this little it's like this little thing. It's like a little fishing line, and they just hold it out and they can just whoop,
slip it in.
Yeah, slip your own socks, slip your socks on.
And I think it's to what you said, if you use it or lose it. And so if you spend 20 years sitting on a couch, sitting in a car seat, sitting in an office chair, and then sitting on a bed, and every piece
sitting
of
in a couch,
it's always tight. Your toilet probably being the lowest thing that you sit on.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, like, you fall down, or your keys are on the floor, and it's like, well, it's just a good example of how the quality of your life, especially you got kids.
And that's how, exactly. And that's what we mean when we say like fountain of youth, is that it's just like when something happens to you, it can take you out, or it can just be a bump in the road. And what's going to determine that outcome is everything that you're doing up until that point.
For real.
Right? And
Very
so
well said, yeah.
if we get in a car accident, it can be, oh man, maybe a little tweaked neck, or a sore back, or maybe that broke your hip.
Yeah, for real.
And depending on how old you are and how feeble you are, a broken hip is kind of like the last stop before 100% Coffin Town.
I mean, I had one of my mom's friends literally just in that cliche sense, however sad, it like literally fell, broke her hip. Everything was fine. Had the surgery to fix it, and that was it. And it's just, she died.
Yeah. Yes, because like it takes a lot. And but then another angle to that is, had you been exercising up until that point, doing your squats, your lunges,
just a simple glute bridge.
Maybe that hip break would not even have happened. Okay. Right. Or maybe it
could have been a fracture.
Or maybe it did happen, but because you had extra muscle mass on you, the break wouldn't have been so bad. It could have just been more of a fracture. Maybe you could have avoided surgery altogether, or maybe worst case scenario, maybe you did have to go to surgery, but just your ability to survive surgery,
100%,
survival rate after surgery, because of the extra 10 pounds of muscle mass you had from exercising for your whole life,
tissue capacity,
was just enough to kind of sustain your strength and ability to recover from that surgery. But if you go into that surgery with just skinny fat, no muscle tissue, no bone density. You know, surgery's rough.
It is.
For a 20-year-old, it's rough. An 80-year-old?
Oh, man.
7-year-old?
You start to see.
It's not so great, you know?
It rocks that boat.
And this
strong.
is the fountain of youth. This is why, if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably 25 to 55 years old. If you're not doing some basic form of strength training, 15 minutes, a few times a week, when the inevitable incident in life happens, you just don't want to lose that fight because you didn't take care of yourself. If you lose the fight because you just lose the fight, it is what it is, you know, and no one gets out alive. But you don't want to lose the fight. In the fight, I mean, of course, it could be anything. An actual fight with somebody, a car accident, falling down the stairs, you know.
Yeah,
you don't want to lose that battle.
Soap, you know, who knows?
You don't want to lose that battle because of the things you didn't do leading up to that.
Yeah.
You know, if you can, you know, if life gets you, but you've done everything you could have to prepare yourself and just got the best, you know, no one's perfect. You can't, but man, oh man, can you avert disaster so many times in your life by simply just doing the groundwork and being consistent with some basics.
100%. And to bring it back to the healthy vanity that we all seek, you know, to me, it's also like you got to think about, you know, our whole system. We're made of water. Our whole system is just this constant mechanism of pumps and valves and flushings and metabolic waste and this. And just on a, you know, the simple kind of idea of just stagnancy tends to be bogged down and diseased. Again, we talked about it. You look at a creek and you got that little offshoot of water.
An ecosystem.
Yeah, it's like that's where all like the pollution and the foam might build up. You see the health of the water from not where it's flowing, but from where there's that little stagnant pool. Mm-hmm. And it's just so clear that when things, fluids, you know, any type of molecule waste. Yeah. It's like, again, the glycogen pump, like you've talked about, it's one thing if you just don't overeat carbohydrate and calories, but it's also a different thing when you make your muscles use the glycogen that's stored so that becomes an empty space. There's the metabolic and then gets filled again. And the process of exchanging the molecules versus just letting the glycogen sit in there from not being used, whether you're overeating or not, is a whole different process. And then I think just avoiding stagnancy by being generally a healthy active, by walking and by drinking your water is just one of the ways that, to me, will just make a person look that much better. If you just think about your heart elevating just in any capacity and all of the fluid pumping through every inch of all your capillaries and your venous return, all of the cells having increased movement of the metabolic waste into the lymphatic system, which gets brought back to the heart and gets excreted through our bowels, urine, and skin. You know, it's just like the whole system just needs to get pumped.
That whole flow, you got to keep that channel clear.
Yep.
And when you are sedentary and you're eating overly processed food, that's just, you know, just a glut of calories, your body can't even metabolize it. What do you think is going to happen, man? What would happen if that little pond we just described there, all of a sudden one channel of it got blocked up and there was all this inflow, but there was no outflow?
Yeah, there's no movement.
Right?
Yeah,
it just starts to stagnate and build mildew, and all the water becomes acidic, and the fish starts to die off, and the water turns brown, and now now it's just like it's a biohazard.
Yep.
Well, our bodies are not that fucking different.
They
really aren't. You know, like if we don't keep that channel clear through maintaining a good calorie intake on average, exerting ourselves a little bit every day, and just keep pushing that stuff through our body. That right there is the fountain of youth.
100%. It really is, because it's otherwise everything, like you said, it just builds up, and all the stuff that should be eliminated doesn't get eliminated as fast. You know, like our veins, our lymphatic system, which is the system primarily involved in removing waste, is only got like a muscle pump and gravity pump. So if you don't flex your muscles or change your limb positions and things, I mean, that's why we have lymph nodes in our armpits and our groin and neck, is because those are high areas of squish, right? So if you think about doing a squat, all of a sudden your groin area is getting squished and opened up. squished and open up. And same for like any arm movement. If you think about a push-up or a row, all of a sudden your armpit's being squeezed. And so there's this collection of lymph nodes there so that the lymph fluid builds. And every time we do some type of repetition or movement, you're literally mechanically pumping the lymph nodes to get stuff to return to the heart.
It's important that people understand that lymphatic system is not like your circulatory system. There's no heartbeat in your lymphatic system.
Correct, yeah.
It's a one-way system that relies solely on the contraction of your muscle in order to pull things out and through. But lymphatic system is essentially the cleanup crew that removes metabolic waste from our cells. And so if we're sedentary and we're not moving, well, it doesn't take a PhD in biomechanics to understand that, like, hey, your lymph system isn't moving, which means that you're not processing and expelling metabolic waste.
Yeah.
Well, then where's the metabolic waste?
It's fucking
It's just sitting there, man.
Concentrating, yeah.
So exercising builds muscle, increases bone density, all that good stuff, but it also contracts your muscles, which then pumps the lymphatic system.
Squeezes the tubes of toothpaste.
Which
full.
then just clears out that metabolic waste, gets it through your kidneys, and so you can piss it out or shit it out, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Or sweat it out.
Yeah,
and
but
so, like,
mainly those two.
and so that's one of the many reasons why you got to move your ass.
You just got to get that body moving. If you're not breaking a sweat ever in your life, like you're not moving that system the same way. Yeah, and it's so it's like there is literally accessible avenues that aren't beauty creams or plastic surgery or magic detox pill sets, and they're boring a little bit comparatively. They're not as shimmery and shiny as the 5-day bone broth cleanse. And I think it's and again, I do think fasting has value for the things we're talking about, but not as much value as the consistent practice of everything we just named.
Yeah.
So
just to recap, Fountain of Youth, got to move your ass.
Got to do
I think no matter what,
you
should get your nutrition tight, but like if just purely like talking just health, I think exercise.
I would put it first, truly. That just
then nutrition, and the basics are just get your fruits and veggies in, man. Like honestly, if there's like, okay, you could track calories, great. Like that's what I do. Or you could just like make good food choices most of the time.
Yeah, just single source ingredients, real
single
food.
source, single ingredient, and then just every plate have fruits and veggies, so you have that dietary fiber, because the mortality drop off rate when someone eats over 30 grams of dietary fiber a day is insane.
Yeah.
So fitness, nutrition, and then just really making sure that you're not getting too caught up in like it has to be a certain way about it, but being open-minded enough to be flexible with your approach. Yeah. Just like, hey, it doesn't have it could be yoga, it could be bodybuilding, it could be just walking the dog, but you got surfing,
mountain biking,
whatever is consistent, whatever you can just be consistent with, right?
Yeah. Get some good sleep, drink your water.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll all live to 120. We'll see.
We might, and I bet you there's going to be some like crazy medical AI breakthrough that we'll just figure out all this disease and we'll all live to be 150 years old.
Yeah.
I bet you that'll happen in our lifetime.
Yeah, no, I would agree.
Probably in the next 10 years, the way things are quantum leaping. Episode 43. I think that'll do it for today. Catch you guys next time. Peace out. Bye-bye.
Bye.